Part 87. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 861. Chapter 861. Little Belle bumps into An Ranb's JQ. Yeah, Yahweh must have come to her for a reason, and there was no way An Ran would not agree. It's just that there is a man hiding in the bedroom, and she can't let Yahweh know about it. What happened to you? I have some disagreements with Yezikin. Did you have a quarrel? Yahweh shook his head. There was no quarrel. I wanted him to promise me something, but if I stayed with him, I would be deceived by him. An Ran understands. There is no need to worry about this. An Ran took Yahweh to another bedroom. You can live here. Wow, thank you. An Ran. Yahweh turned around and hugged her. An Ran also patted her back while thinking of a solution. Have you eaten? An Ran asked her. Yahweh shook his head. I'll go get it for you. Hee, Anran is the best, but let's go together. How can people who are here to mess around not do something? However, An Ran's only reaction was unexpected. After the two of them entered the kitchen, An Ran made an excuse to go back to his room and saw that B was fully dressed. She breathed a sigh of relief and said, you should see the opportunity and leave, don't be discovered by Xylee. The second half of the sentence is emphasized. This made Kitano very unhappy. Why, I can't see anyone. An Ran glanced at him with a cold look. Don't forget our agreement. This matter started a week ago. An Ran wanted to break off the relationship, but B didn't want to. The two always got entangled, and An Ran gave in half. Baya pointed out her innermost feelings. Didn't you also enjoy it? Physical reactions cannot deceive anyone, so the two of them reached an unwritten agreement and never talked about love. They are all adults and can be responsible for their own actions. Since there are things for them to enjoy, why can't they do them? So there was lingering afterward. I just didn't expect that I would come by such a coincidence. Kitano was unhappy. But An Ran was not soft-hearted. An Ran said, Xiao Liao's mood is more important than you. Meaning, she can kick him out for Xiao Li. Because Xiao Lian is her friend and is above board. As for Kitano, their relationship can only be buried underground. You're cruel. Baya was filled with panic. Yahweh in the kitchen poked his head out to ask where the ingredients were. An Ran quickly closed the door and walked over to cook with her. An Ran, if Yezikin comes to see me later, you must not rebel and open the door. No matter what he says, don't speak for him. Good. Baby An Ran, you are the best, I love you. B wanted to hit someone after hearing this. But An Ran smiled. Xiao Lian is getting cuter and cuter. There are not many people who can make An Ran smile, and there are almost no people who can make An Ran smile and speak in such a gentle tone. But the only thing that happened to be was one of those small probabilities. They don't have to get along every day, but there is a friendship that is engraved in their hearts. B wanted to hit someone after seeing it. The kitchen was filled with fragrance. Baya did not listen to An Ran's words and left. Instead, he sat on her bed and felt her scent. B was unwilling to leave, and his eyes began to wander around An Ran's room. Although it's not very moral, he still touches some of her things. Ong's sleeve accidentally caught the guard of the drawer, and the drawer was brought out. When Kitano went to close the drawer, he found something amazing. His necklace. When girls fall in love, men have nothing to do. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 862. Chapter 862. Kitano found the skull necklace. Baya reached out to get it, and a silver black skull necklace was brought out. At a glance, he was sure that it belonged to him. A necklace that had been lost for 5 years was left here and was placed within reach of An Ran every day. Baya could not describe the feeling in his heart at that moment. He just held the necklace in his hand and tightened it. Yuan ran, what are you thinking about? The two women outside have already prepared dinner. Yuan ran usually doesn't pay much attention to his food, so the meals he makes taste ordinary. However, the only thing Yezikin studied deliberately was for Yezikin. The food was already fragrant before it was even out of the pot. It's even more appetizing when it's placed on the table. Well done, Yuan Ran gave a positive evaluation. Hey, of course, I've been studying it for a long time. Ye Wei was not modest. You eat first, I'll get something. Good. Yuan Ran opened the door, thinking that the person had left, but she didn't want to see Kitano sitting on her bed. Why are you still here? Yuan Ran said in a bad tone. Beiye was surprisingly lifeless. Instead, he looked at her with a smile and said, Little beauty Ran Ran. Hearing the name from B, Yuan Ran subconsciously took a step back and bumped into the door. Ye Wei, who had sensitive ears, heard the noise, pushed the chair away and stood up, and ran, what's wrong with you? Yuan Ran's heart tightened, and she held her hand against the door and shook her head, it was a bit hot from cooking just now, so change your clothes. Ye Wei didn't doubt her words, it just felt weird. She touched her forehead and said, it's not hot. But these were all what she whispered to herself. Yuan Ran immediately closed the door and locked it. When he turned around and saw Beiye, he felt like he was holding his breath. Why don't you leave? Beiye chuckled and did not answer her question directly. Instead, he raised his hand to reveal a necklace. When Yuan Ran saw the skull necklace appearing in B's hand, she suddenly felt a sense of shame that her private secrets had been revealed and exposed. Her shame was not reflected in her blushing face, but in the unconcealable displeasure in her eyes. What on earth do you want to do? Meeting B, Yuan Ran felt that his lifelong temper would be vented on him. Kitano raised his hand high again, his necklace swaying. He asked, tell me, why is the necklace here with you? Yuan Ran replied without hesitation, I picked it up. Okay, I picked it up. B nodded and asked, then why did you keep it with you? Smoothly. Sure, Kitano played with the necklace, obviously not believing her excuse. You probably moved out of this house after you graduated. You took the things with you after you picked them up, and it seemed like you took them out often. He slowly recounted a fact. Some of the past that he wanted to hide was exposed. Yuan Ran glanced slightly, I don't have it. Yuan Ran knew that she might be completely defeated if she continued like this, so she pretended not to care and said, if you want it, take it. After saying that, he turned around and took out a piece of clothing from the closet, untied his hair, and let his long, silky black hair flow down his shawl. She turned her back to B and took off her dress. Yuan Ran, who was disturbed by her thoughts, had little scruples. Her long hair covered her back, but her long white legs were clearly exposed, which made Kitano feel itchy. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 863. Chapter 863. Do you like me? Just after she changed her clothes, B suddenly reached out and pulled her over, held her in his arms, lowered his head and asked, do you like me? This is the first time the two have brought up sensitive topics face to face since they met again. Yuan Ran looked into B's eyes and saw her own appearance in his eyes. She thought of an image from long ago. At that time, Kitano asked her to stare into her eyes to see what was there. Yuan Ran, who had low emotional intelligence, was of course unable to master Beiye's tricks. She thought there was something wrong with Beiye's eyes and was worried to death. At that time, Kitano held her in his arms and laughed loudly, saying, idiot, eyes are the windows to the soul. I see you in my eyes and you in my heart. But now, he sees her in his eyes, but not in his heart. At that moment, Yuan Ran felt very panicked. I. Just when Yuan Ran was about to speak, Kitano's mobile phone screen suddenly glowed and vibrated, making it particularly clear in the quiet room. The two of them looked at each other at the same time. Yuan Ran, who had excellent eyesight, saw the note on it, which was a woman's name. She felt as if she had been showered with cold water all over her head. She pushed B away with all her strength, walked out decisively, closed the door, and clenched her fingers tightly before letting go. The only one who was on the phone at night was no wonder it had been quiet for so long just now. Ye Weiwei also saw Yuan Ran come out with a change of clothes and gestured to her. Yuan Ran nodded silently, sat at the dining table and started eating. She also heard the content of Ye Weiwei's phone call at this time. Ye Weiwei said, "I won't go. I won't go back tonight, and I won't go back tomorrow night. In short, I will only go back whenever you let me into the company. Idiot Yezikin, I won't admit defeat. I'm serious this time, you can't stop me. Bah, I won't tell you where I am now, just sleep on the pillow. Even if you find me, I won't go back with you. You should give up on this idea." If Gong Qinli was around, people would definitely roll their eyes and then instigate her, "You should just hang up the phone." Unfortunately, the person sitting next to him now is Yuan Ran. Yuan Ran didn't know what Yezikin said, but she listened to Ye Weiwei's entire reply. There is coquettishness, arrogance, and laughter, but there is no anger or sadness. They are all sweet. Yuan Ran actually envied this kind of night. Being pampered unscrupulously, I dare to say anything I want without any scruples or hesitations. Because, they both know each other's intentions, and they are people who can be completely trusted and relied on. Don't you know that women need to be coaxed? Don't you love your baby? How would I know if you are holding things back? So I won't hold things back. I will tell you clearly, when will you think about it and contact me again, bye. Ye Weiwei said the last word and finally was willing to hang up the phone. That last sentence just touched someone's heart. Yuan Ran paused slightly and glanced in the direction of the bedroom door. The two of them finished their meal in silence. Ye Weiwei suddenly stared at her closely and asked, "En Ran, you seem to have something on your mind." "No. But I can see it. I'm not forcing you to tell me, but I want to tell you, don't keep things in your heart. If you tell the things, you may gain unexpected rewards. With a character like En Ran's, she needs someone to give her a push and call for Xiao Lingdang's assist." End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 864. Chapter 864 En Ran confesses his feelings. After Ye Weiwei returned to the guest room, Yuan Ran stood in the kitchen and hesitated for a while. Thinking that Bai Ye had not eaten yet, he finally filled a bowl of rice and sent it to the room. "I thought I would see that man cheating and staying here, but when I opened the door, I found that the room was empty." She walked outside the door and found that the pair of men's shoes on the shoe cabinet had been worn. All these phenomena told her that B had left. I don't know when Kitano left, but she thought of that phone call. Yuan Ran has a good memory. She remembers the name Yi Suiao on it, and she is also a girl who once met Kitano. We are still in contact, and it seems the relationship is good. She almost forgot that not everyone is as indifferent to feelings as she is. Maybe, everything Kitano is doing now is just because he is unwilling to give in. Ye Weiwei did not stay overnight at Yuan Ran's house as she wished, because Yezikin came to find her in person at around 9 o'clock in the evening. En Ran, please save me, I don't want to be alone with the bad guys." "Xiao Li, come on." Yuan Ran remembered her previous promise to spend the night, shook her head helplessly, and retreated to the room to make room for the two of them. "Yezikin, go away if you don't agree, I won't go back." I have no choice but to go back. I won't, I won't. I don't know what the two people talked about. In the end, Ye Weiwei was forcibly carried out by Yezikin. Yuan Ran stood at the door and waved to them. Ye Weiwei was still asking for help, and ran, traitor. Yuan Ran said to her lightly, I wish you good luck. Then, closed the door thoughtfully. This farce seems to have ended just like that. Yuan Ran seemed to be able to feel the traces left by Kitano here when he stayed alone in the room. Suddenly remembering something, she habitually opened the drawer and saw that the skull necklace was still in its place, and she was inexplicably relieved. Unexpectedly, Kitano left her behind after discovering the necklace. She maintained a relationship with Kitano that was only about and no love. She didn't know whether it was good or bad. She kept indulging herself and could not get back on track in the end. Perhaps she should make it clear to Beiya like Ye Weiwei said. If there was someone else around Beiya, she would stay far away and would never get involved in other people's feelings. Yuan Ran is a person who will take action when she makes up her mind. She found the shortest and most suitable time to contact Kitano. B agreed without hesitation and told her that he would go to the community to find her in the afternoon. Yuan Ran felt inexplicably nervous. She could get off work early that day and bought a lot of fresh ingredients at the supermarket below the community. Her cooking is not considered delicious, but this time she studied the patterns of the food carefully. When the appointed time was almost reached, Yuan Ran went back to the room, took out the necklace, and held it tightly in his hand. The heart beats like thunder. It's just that this time Kitano exceeded the time in the past. Frowning her brows, she didn't feel that Kitano was still trying to trick her in this way. But why didn't you come? Will something unexpected happen? She rarely takes the initiative to care about others, but this time she couldn't help it. She called her, but before she could speak, the other party spoke first. Hello. Hearing that voice, Yuan Ran couldn't say the next sentence no matter what. Because it was a woman's voice, and she heard it clearly. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 865. Chapter 865, I'm glad you are ill, but you are the only one who can cure it. Yuan Ran hung up the phone. Her previous courage was running low after Kitano was late and the woman answered the phone. The necklace in my hand was clenched and loosened. I glanced at the trash can under the table from the corner of my eye and raised my hand. On the other side, Kitano just came out of the bathroom. When Yi Sueo saw him coming out, she quickly apologized, I'm really sorry for staining your clothes just now. Fine. Kitano was not that particular. He just went to the bathroom to clean up a little. The first thing he did at this moment was to pick up his mobile phone. Yi Sueo told him calmly, someone just called you. I thought it was an unfamiliar number, so I just answered it for you. B frowned for a moment, took his phone back and looked through the records. When he saw the number he knew so well, he glanced at Yi Sueo displeasedly, don't answer my calls casually in the future. Yi Sueo didn't expect him to resist so much. She bowed her head and apologized with a good attitude of admitting her mistake, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I think this strange number is from the city, and I was afraid that someone would come to you with something urgent. Seeing her attitude, B couldn't say anything harsh. Forget it, I'm leaving. He pulled up the zipper and put it on his arm, then strode towards the door. Yi Sueo ran 2 steps to catch up with him and asked, Brother Bei, don't you want to leave until you have dinner? I have something else to do. Well, be careful on the road. Beiya nodded and called you and ran back as he walked. But unfortunately, the other party didn't answer. Kitano kept calling, but got no response except the cold voice of artificial customer service. B punched the car seat, thinking that according to Yuan Ran's character, she must have misunderstood. Beiya quickly rushed to the community where Yuan Ran lived. He knocked on the door but no one opened the door. The person who knows the opposite door comes up. The person across the street had seen Yuan Ran and Beye walking together, so he knew Beye. The ant opposite the door kindly reminded him, "Young man, please stop knocking. When I went downstairs to the supermarket to buy groceries, I saw your girlfriend leaving the house. I asked casually, and she said to go back to her hometown." Hearing this, B frowned even deeper. If Yuan Ran said he was going back to his hometown, he was going back to the Yu family. Kitano sent many messages to Yuan Ran on his mobile phone, but received no reply. B couldn't help but run to Yu's house. When he learned that Yuan Ran was at home safely, he left quietly. It is impossible for him to go to the Yu family to find someone. But the whole night after that, Kitano did not receive a reply. Early the next morning, Kitano drove to Yu Group and squatted with Yuan Ran at the gate of the company. Seeing Yuan Ran get out of the car, he walked over and caught him. Yuan Ran resisted reflexively. B put his arm around her shoulders and whispered in her ear, "It's me." Yuan Ran seemed to be relieved instantly. But soon, she became more vigilant and said, "Let go." "No, were you angry yesterday?" "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about." Yuan Ran broke away from his hand and didn't want to spend time entangled with him here. But with Beye's strength, he pulled her back in one fell swoop. At this moment, B looked at her with particularly serious eyes, a touch deeper than before. "Yuan Ran, let's get married." "Yuan Ran, are you sick?" "Beye, you have medicine." "I wish you were ill, but you are the only one who can cure me." Yuan Ran was taken away by Beye before he understood what he meant. Then, Kitano miraculously created his household registration book. Get a red book. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 866. Chapter 866 Marriage Certificate and Divorce Certificate. Yuan Ran didn't expect that Beye would come to the rescue and even have his household registration book ready. "Where are your documents?" "Yujia." Yuan Ran almost didn't think about it when he answered the question, and responded to his words so naturally. B was very satisfied with her honesty and drove her quickly to the gorgeous villa of the Yu family. "Go and get it." Beye said this as if they were a bunch of couples who were about to get married, but Yuan Ran hadn't fully realized it until now. "She did not obey me." "B, what tricks do you want to play?" "Not to play. I don't have time to play this boring game with you." Yuan Ran glanced slightly and crossed his arms. From this performance, it can be seen that she does not believe Beye's words and only regards this as Beye's new way to play with her. Beye is innocent and helpless. He wanted to hold Yuan Ran's hand, but Yuan Ran pulled it out without hesitation. Beye explained to her, "The person who answered the phone yesterday was my friend." "Oh," she responded lightly, as if she didn't care. Beye was always unable to calm down when he met Yuan Ran, and his words were somewhat irritable. He emphasized, "It's not the relationship you think." "I didn't think about anything." Beye put his hands on her arms, deliberately pulled hers over, and asked, "Aren't you angry because of the misunderstanding? You didn't answer the phone and didn't go home, so you deliberately left me alone." Yuan Ran did not avoid his gaze, but said with clear eyes, "You are thinking too much. It seems unreasonable to reason with people like Yuan Ran." Beye refused to let her go no matter what. He insisted that she face him and said firmly to her, "Yuan Ran, let's get married." Yuan Ran lowered his eyes and thought quietly during the silent period. No one spoke, and the silence lasted for a minute. When she looked up again, she seemed to have figured something out, and asked Beye, "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm sure." Good. What did you say? B couldn't help shaking Yuan Ran's arm, seeming a little excited. Okay, Yuan Ran repeated it again when he was slightly excited, giving him a satisfactory answer. Yuan Ran opened the car door and walked straight to the villa. Beye sat in the car, his hands holding the steering wheel were trembling slightly, and the emotions flowing in his eyes completely exposed the joy that he couldn't hide in his heart. Yuan Ran returned to the villa, and the housekeeper asked a few questions out of curiosity. Why are you coming home at this time, miss? Something. Miss, if you need any help, just ask. Get out. Okay. Sent away the housekeeper, Yuan Ran walked into MRSU's bedroom. She knows the location of the household registration book and can get it by opening the cabinet and entering the password. She took the household registration book calmly, as if she was not going to get married, but just completing a task. After leaving the villa, she saw Beye's car parked outside. After Yuan Ran got in the car, Beye turned around and saw the household registration book in her hand. The fingers brushed the corners of his lips, and there was unconcealable excitement on his face. Today is a good day. There are many people going to the Civil Affairs Bureau to apply for certificates. It was the first time for two newbies to come. After waiting in line for a while, they finally got there. It was only when they were asked to fill in the application materials that something was wrong. Isn't this a marriage? What, are you here to get married? We are here to handle divorce. There was an incompetence, and Kitano was very angry. Will Kitano and Anran successfully receive the red book? End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 867. Chapter 867, Put You on the Bed and Cry. Finally found the right location, and the photographer was in trouble when the two took the ID photo. Beautiful bride, smile. There is no need for a bright smile when the certificate is issued, but Yuan Ran's expression is cold. Although it has a cold beauty in the photo, it is not suitable to be placed on the marriage certificate. What's more, Kitano asked them to shoot better and use money to do things, so he didn't dare to perfunctory. Kitano is handsome, and his three-quarter smile can also show his charm, but Yuan Ran doesn't smile, and her indifferent look shows no joy. No wonder people didn't suspect that they were here to apply for a divorce certificate just now. Can you make Yuan Ran smile? This is really a once-in-a-year experience, okay. Even if she laughed occasionally, it would be gentle. I had never seen her indulge herself in laughter. Beye turned his head and lifted her chin, smile. Yuan Ran waved his hand away, unable to laugh at all. The photographer next to me was very worried. B stared at Yuan Ran and deliberately made her laugh, smile. This is a marriage, not a divorce. Oh, she knew, so what? Smile. How to laugh? The person who asks this kind of question is also weird. Beye came close to her and bit her ear, threatening, if you don't smile, I'll turn around and push you on the bed to cry. Unfortunately, Yuan Ran was not threatened by him and remained calm, we'll talk about it then. No matter what, Yuan Ran refused to laugh, or she really couldn't laugh. The two of them were delayed for a lot of time. B didn't care, but Yuan Ran was embarrassed and asked the photographer to take pictures like this. The photographer followed the requirements and took the photo. Fortunately, the two of them have good looks. Even if they don't smile, it's still a pleasant picture. After successfully obtaining the marriage certificate, both of them felt an incredible feeling in their hearts. Beye took the red book and flipped it over and over. It was obvious that there were only 2 pages, but it seemed that he just couldn't read enough. As for Yuan Ran, she stared at her marriage certificate. She must have felt something in her heart, but she didn't show it. She thought for a while, took a photo and sent it to Ye Weiwei. Seeing her actions, Kitano deliberately leaned over to take a look. When he saw Xiao Liao's note, he suddenly felt that Ye Wei was no longer a bad guy who disturbed his good things. Knowing that Ye Wei is Yuan Ran's best friend, since Yuan Ran is willing to tell Ye Wei about the marriage, it means that it is a recognition of him. Just waiting for the two of them to recover, they suddenly felt a little weird. Have they obtained the certificate? Inexplicably, became married. And the object was an ex-girlfriend who had been separated for 5 or 6 years. Sure enough, the fate is wonderful. The two of them got into the car, not knowing what to do for a moment. It's time to celebrate, right? Not long after, Yuan Ran received a message reply from Ye Wei. After reading it, Yuan Ran mentioned it to Bei Ye. Xiao Lian said, "Let me treat her to dinner." Bei answered without hesitation, "Okay, treat her to dinner, now." Yuan Ran didn't have any big reaction, but the expression on his face was obviously much more relaxed. They quickly decided on a location. Ye Yi was faster than the two of them. At the door of the restaurant, Kitano received a call. He hung up without saying a few words. He turned to Yuan Ran and said, "I have something urgent to deal with." "Want to leave?" "Right." Yuan Ran did not respond calmly. Instead, he hesitated for a while and asked, "What's the matter?" "A friend is in poor health. I'm going to check on him and will come back as soon as possible." "Must go now." "Must go now." Yuan Ran said and entered the restaurant alone. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 868. Chapter 868, On the first day of marriage, my heart felt cold. "Hey, and Ran, here it is." Seeing the bride who had just received her marriage certificate, Ye Wei waved to her excitedly. But it seemed that Yuan Ran was the only one coming around. "It's wired." After Yuan Ran sat down, she asked, "Why are you alone, your husband? He has something to do." "What? Didn't you just say that you would treat me to dinner together? Are you very busy?" "Right." Ye is the only one who knows how to watch people's emotions. Seeing that Yuan Ran was not in a good mood after receiving the certificate, she guessed that it might be because the other party had something to do and left temporarily. Ye Wei comforted her and winked at her again. "Now you should tell me who the other party is, right? They hide it so tightly. You don't look surprised." "Humph, of course, I'm so smart. I knew you were definitely in love when I left your house that day. Kitano must have worn those shoes while walking, so he was discovered by Ye Yi, who was extremely perceptive. Miscalculation, misstep." Yuan Ran did not deny it. "Well, I didn't expect it to happen so quickly at the time, so I didn't tell you." "So are you having a flash marriage now? Who is it with?" "Ye Yi is also very strange. Where is the magical boss who can impress Yuan Ran and get her to agree to get married in a short period of time?" Yuan Ran hesitated and told her, "It's Bei Ye." Ye Wei quickly covered his mouth to prevent any unsightly situation from happening. She put down the water glass in her hand and calmed down. "You mean, the person you married is Kitano? When did he come back, and when did you get together again? Wow, it's so destined. I should have thought of it earlier." Because there was no news at all, Ye Wei really didn't guess this person. Yuan Ran picked out some important things and said, "When you were traveling, he helped the Yu family. No wonder the Yu group's crisis is so sudden." Learning from Yuan Ran that her marriage partner was Bei Ye, this was easier for Ye Wei to accept than anyone else. Hearing what Yuan Ran said about Bei's help to the Yu family, Ye Wei believed it without any doubt and they reunited. "That's great, this is really good news. Kitano liked you so much back then, and you have been waiting for him wholeheartedly over the years. Now that you can achieve success, it's really a happy thing." Yuan Ran reported good news but not bad news, and she hid her thoughts very deeply. Ye Wei never thought that her relationship with Kitano was actually very messy and bad, including marriage, which seemed like a child's play. The only night was a meal, and when he left, he talked with Yuan Ran. Be safe, be happy. Ah, you too. I've already done it, now it's your turn. Next time I will definitely take advantage of the meal you two invited together. Okay, Yuan Ran nodded in agreement. It was halfway through the morning, and Yuan Ran went to work at the company in the afternoon, as if nothing happened. After get off work, she suddenly didn't know where to go. Go back to the community? But she and Kitano are married, right? Going to Kitano's villa? Yuan Ran thought a lot, especially those words that Ye Wei encouraged her to pursue happiness bravely. Xiao Lian is right. Yuan Ran muttered to himself as the car set off for B's villa. If she didn't see other women at Kitano's villa, she thought it might be a good night. But she happened to see the woman living in the villa. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 869. Chapter 869 Ran Ran, you are so cute. What would you think if you see another woman in your husband's house before you move in? Why are you here? B seemed surprised by Yuan Ran's arrival. Yuan Ran asked coldly, I can't come. How could it be? The atmosphere between the two of them is not like that of a newlywed couple at all. Yuan Ran glanced at the woman sitting in the living room and said softly, it seems that I came at the wrong time. What nonsense are you talking about? Beiya naturally held her waist and whispered in her ear, I'm very happy that you are here. The reason why he was surprised just now was because he didn't expect that Yuan Ran, with his unshakable character, would actually come to him, which made him feel an unspeakable joy in his heart. I'll take you back to your room to take a look. Beiya let her go and held hands to lead her upstairs. Yuan Ran turned her head and looked at Yi Suiao as she left. The two women had different feelings in their hearts. This was not the first time that Yuan Ran entered Kitano's room, but this time he saw a different style of arrangement. The original dark color has turned into a sober light blue. The style of the entire bedroom is fresh and elegant, which is in line with Yuan Ran's appreciation. How was it? Do you like it? You, rearranged. Certainly. Because, she likes blue, which can make people feel peaceful. How much courage did Yuan Ran have to muster up to ask such a narcissistic question, because the rooms in her community are mainly decorated in light blue. Looking forward to Kitano's answer, I felt a little nervous. Yuan Ran's thoughts are difficult to guess, but also simple. When her expression remains unchanged, it is difficult for others to guess her mood, but if she has a slight mood swing, others can easily penetrate her heart. Kitano is the latter. But he suddenly wanted to tease her, so he said, why do you have such an idea? I just think blue is good, let's change the style. Oh. Yuan Ran lowered his eyes, and did not feel much anger or joy from this. Beiya couldn't help but stretched out his hand to rub her little face. Why do you have this expression every day? You're only 23 years old. You should smile more. Yuan Ran said abruptly, don't you know that you are more likely to get wrinkles if you smile too much? Of course, you are so cute. Suddenly he didn't want to talk to Bei yet. But she thinks Ran Ran is a pretty good title. I'll go get someone to cook, and you can rest here now. By the way, you can get familiar with the layout of this room. The implication is that she can look at and touch everything in this room as she pleases. Yuan Ran nodded, indicating that he would listen to his arrangement. Beiya went out. Yuan Ran stood in this room for a while, and the first thing he opened was the wardrobe. It's just that the picture you see when you open it this time is different from before. It used to be all gray and black men's clothing, but now 2/3 of it contains different styles of women's clothing. She picked it up and felt it, and she knew it was the right size for her. The room also needs a dressing table with various cosmetics on it. Because it used to be Kitano's bedroom, it was nothing special and there were few things. Now I don't have much, so there is still something missing. Oh, I thought about it, maybe her personal belongings are missing. Yuan Ran walked around the room, feeling a little happy. However, this does not mean that she can forget about Yi Suiao downstairs. Is Yi Suiao a guest? Still live here? End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 870. Chapter 870, A Sharp Confrontation with the Mistress, cool. Yuan Ran went downstairs to see Yi Suiao, but found her coming out of the kitchen carrying a dish. Yuan Ran looked at her actions indifferently, and walked over to stop her behavior. Why don't you have to show off if I don't want you to have a good rest? It's okay, I'm not a wealthy young lady who doesn't have a lot of money. I can't take any time off. Yi Suiao said it calmly, but Yuan Ran felt that her words were just short of naming names. Yuan Ran slowly walked down the stairwell. She stood there with an innate superiority. That kind of rich lady, she is the one I'm talking about. Even though Yi Suiao was busy doing things there, Yuan Ran didn't deliberately go to the kitchen to help. She was used to being served by servants from birth. If she was competing for kitchen work at home, what was the use of having a chef? Miss Yi, there is a chef at home, so you don't have to worry. It doesn't matter, I'm used to it anyway. When I helped Brother Bei cook before. Yi Suiao deliberately stopped here. Anyway, it's all a trivial matter. She smiled at Yuan Ran, her natural and friendly smile looking unoffensive. But this kind of smile is what Yuan Ran lacks. Yuan Ran heard the meaning of Yi Suiao's words and pursed her thin lips slightly. Have you ever helped Kitano cook before? It seems there is an incredible story in between. Is it the past of Beiya and Yi Suiao that she was not involved in? How interesting. What position you are in and what you should do have already been divided and arranged. As for other things, even if you do them, it will be useless. Yuan Ran's words are sharp. Don't forget, she majored in law. If she hadn't inherited the family business, she might have become a gold medal lawyer by now. Yuan Ran is arrogant in front of others and refuses to bow her head. Yi Suiao seemed to be ashamed of her words, lowering her head and looking unhappy. Enough. Bi whispered 2 words to Yuan Ran while she was beside her. But just these 2 words were like a heavy stone weighing on Yuan Ran's heart, making her almost breathless. Yuan Ran glanced at Bi calmly, and then walked away from him. At this time, the food in the kitchen was almost ready. Beiya let them eat. The 3 of them were eating at the table in unusual silence. After dinner, Yuan Ran sat in the hall without knowing the room, as if waiting for something. I saw Yi Suiao walking skillfully in this house, not like a new guest. Yuan Ran refused to admit defeat. She waited here to see why Yi Suiao lived in B's home under what name. At around 9 o'clock, Yi Suiao said she wanted to go to bed. She said good night to Kitano and then returned to the room. Yuan Ran was holding the newspaper in his hand, but his eyes were wandering. After a while, I found that the light in front of me was blocked. She looked up and saw Beiya's tall figure standing in front of her. Of course, when do you plan to go to bed? I do not mind. Many young people have irregular work and rest schedules, and sometimes she works overtime all night when she is busy at work. That's why she said, it doesn't matter. But Kitano picked her up regardless. His body suddenly jumped into the air, Yuan Ran exclaimed and subconsciously hooked his neck. Ha ha. Beiya was so satisfied with her reaction that he laughed out loud and carried her back to the room. At this time, Yi Suiao stood at the door of her room, her face pale, but she held the door with great strength. Ran. End of this chapter.